podcast. We're here with Lloyd Webb, Liam Hilbert, captain of the Bulls cross country team,
unofficially,
and Tyler Sheving here as our third guest for the day. And to start with, let's start with the Dallas Cowboys, who suffered a huge setback to their fantasy season with Dak Prescott off to the hottest start in football history, out for the year and possibly the start of next year with a compound fracture in his ankle. So let's start with Liam here. Does anyone on the Dallas Cowboys offense actually benefit from Dak Prescott being out for the year and with Andy Dalton in for the rest of the year?
Well, I don't know if they benefit. I think Ezekiel Elliott is probably going to get more touches now that they have their backup quarterback. That's generally what teams do when they lose their primary quarterback. But I definitely think it's interesting that they were talking about what a crazy year he was having, but the stats are really good. Therefore, he's still really good. It's just a bad defense. When that was kind of the argument behind why Jameis Winston wasn't all that good. He was leading the league in yards. He was 8-8, and they were like, well, it's his fault that the team's not winning, and therefore let's get rid of him and put somebody else in. Like, it's the same argument. They're the same player. That's
Tyler?
My hot take to start out.
Tyler, anything to add there?
Well, as an Ezekiel Elliott owner, I don't want to say I'm happy because first and foremost, it is absolutely dreadful that someone like Dak Prescott, who's not just a very talented young quarterback, but also just an amazing guy for the NFL, given especially, coming to light with all of the struggles he's had in the last year. But I'm also not going to complain too much just because clearly my back is going to get touches. So there's that first and foremost. And it's funny that you mentioned how Dak Prescott was having such a fantastic year when, like Liam said, a big argument can be how much of that was purely off of Dak Prescott versus how much of that was just off of the sheer inability of the Dallas Cowboys to succeed in anywhere else on the football field. I do think Andy Dalton is probably probably the best backup quarterback in the NFL. So I do think that of any team that would suffer something like this, you're probably going to see the least amount of negative effect on the Cowboys versus, say, if the Buffalo Bills lost Josh Allen. So I'm not going to say that the Cowboys are going to remain the same offensively, but I do believe that moving forward, we are going to be looking at a very similar output for the Dallas Cowboys offense.
All right, one-word answer from all three of you. Is Andy Dalton a top 12, in other words, a QB1 for the rest of the 2020 season? Tyler first.
No.
Liam.
I'm going to also say no.
Lloyd.
Yes. It's the NFC East.
Well, let's go back to our resident Long Island former resident and talk about former New York Jet Le'Veon Bell, as of the time of this recording, is officially signed with the Kansas City Chiefs for the rest of the 2020 season. Does it matter? Is he a fantasy relevant player in Kansas City? Is he worth trying to maybe trade for, or is he just kind of going to go there and be one of 10 guys in that offense, and it's going to be sort of a roll the dice, play him every week type of deal?
I think he fits into their offense like LaShawn McCoy did last year. He's just trying to win. He was on the Jets. I mean, they got to think about this. Let's look back now. The Jets, the most talented player on that team is like 38 years old. That is just sorry. I think the only team in New York that could potentially beat the other one is the Jets if the Jets played the Giants. I don't think that happens. Are they going to go 0-32 between the two of them? That's what I wonder after them getting rid of their only talented guy.
Anything to add, Tyler or Liam?
Well, I mean, look, I first and foremost, I completely agree with Lloyd in that I don't know if the Jets or Giants are really going to do much anything this year, especially the Jets. Like, Le'Veon Bell was probably like was probably their primary playmaker, especially with Jamal Adams leaving. And now I just don't see where they're going to generate anything. All their best players are either hurt, opted out, or non-existent. As far as Le'Veon Bell, I'm actually kind of shocked he went to the Chiefs just because, I mean, there's this kind of stigma that he has a really big ego. And one of the biggest things for an ego is production, getting carries. And I just don't see him. I mean, the Chiefs spent a first-round pick last year on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And you would think that means that they're going to try and feed him the ball regardless of who else is in the backfield. And, they already have Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy. So now it's just a matter of that has the potential to be a messy backfield. But Le'Veon was probably just chasing that ring. So we'll see how that goes for him.
McCoy is on the Bucs now, actually.
Oh my God, that's right.
Interestingly enough,
He's inactive every week, so
He's really chasing
also,
the ring now.
I think
he
fits there fine. Andy Reid was able to handle T.O. And, T.O., who had a bigger ego than T.O. did.
Forget about that 04 Eagles team with like T.O., Brian Dawkins, and a bunch of psychopaths.
I'm glad you didn't include those two in the group of psychopaths. You had to differentiate between the two.
Yeah.
If T.O. doesn't fit in the psychopaths group, I'm really interested in the psychopaths group now.
Well, speaking of psychopaths, Bill Belichick gets to coach a football game this week with his 3 times rescheduled game against the Denver Broncos. So Cam Newton is supposedly going to play in this game. He's off the COVID list and was in practice today. So Cam Newton, in his 3 games he's played, has been a QB1 in fantasy because of his rushing production. But no one else on the Patriots has been inside the top 20 of their positions for more than one of those weeks. With the extended layoff and the time that maybe for Cam to figure out a little bit more about this Patriots offense, is there any of you guys are bullish on maybe looking to pick up on waivers or trade for that's a New England Patriots player? Sony Michel is on IR at this point and doesn't seem like he's coming back. So that backfield now is Damien Harris, a rookie, and Rex Burkhead with James White as the third down guy. And receiver is Edelman, and I really don't know who else catches footballs there. And that's about it. So is there anybody worth looking for? I'll let any of you 3 take this.
I'll take this. I have Sony Michel, so I've kept him on the IR. So he's been sitting there. I've been trying to trade him to Dylan as counters to these outrageous trades to convince him to stop sending me trades. Here's the interesting thing, though. I don't trust that these Patriots got this the way that they did. So you're telling me that the only person who got COVID was Cam Newton. And Cam Newton got to... And Stephon Gilmore, right. So I'm getting that. So Cam Newton gets it, right? He gets it in week 3 or 4. They get their games moved around, so he didn't miss anything. Just around the time that everybody's not as worried about COVID anymore. It happened during the Titans, so the Titans were the bad team. But Cam Newton gets over it. He's got the T-cells or whatever now, or that's what they're going to say he does. Stephon Gilmore tries to super spread Patrick Mahomes when he gets the chance. And now the Pats are in a prime position to hope that all the other teams in the league start spreading it to each other. And they can say, well, we're the only team that doesn't have half our roster on COVID watch. All of a sudden, we're going to go and win a bunch of games against the Bills because, oh no, Josh Allen caught the coronavirus. I'm starting to see this storyline, and I don't like it.
See, Belichick, psychopath. See, it works.
If anybody were to use a pandemic to try and win football games, top of my list.
I like the theory. I can't say if I agree or disagree, but if anyone was going to do it, it's the Patriots.
Yeah, ultimately, I think the only maybe viable option here in this Pats offense is still Edelman, just because he is the only receiver on this team.
You can't count out N'Keal Harry.
N'Keal Harry
he's touch and go. Touch and go. He's on my bench, and he's going to stay there because he knows what he did Like he can do a toe touching catch in the back of the end zone one week, and then the next week he can't catch the football. I don't care if they're playing the Broncos. I don't trust them.
I mean, I think maybe the one interesting guy is actually Damien Harris here, who I coincidentally also own, and the only reason Roll Tide. The reason I'm interested in him is because in training camp with Michelle, Burkhead, and White healthy, he got a majority of the reps with the ones, and Belichick's raved about his ability to catch out of the backfield, which makes me think that it gives them a little bit more package versatility in terms of showing Harris and not having it be obvious whether it's run or pass like it is with White or Michelle. You know, the Pats run 85% of the time when Sony Michel is the primary running back. They pass about 90% of the time when it's White or Burkhead as the primary back. Maybe Harris gives them a little bit more scheme versatility, and maybe he gets, you know, I don't think any Pats back is ever going to get more than 50% of the touches any game. But even if Harris went up to 50, at least the scheme versatility might make him like the most attractive option because he can get some of the cheap, points for just catches and 8-yard swing passes on top of maybe 40, 50 yards rushing a game. I don't know. Moving on, though, to looking ahead to week 6, we are already at almost the halfway point, actually, of the season. Probably the marquee game this week is Green Bay, Tampa Bay on Sunday. I think it's Sunday Night Football, I think. Brady off of not knowing that it was 4th down versus Rodgers, who is extremely motivated by the Packers' decision to draft Jordan Love in the first round when there were like 9 really good receivers for him to have. Lloyd, you've been pretty outspoken about a certain Mr. Tom Brady and his state of washedness. You know what? The floor is yours, Lloyd. Tell me how you might see this Rodgers-Brady matchup shaking out here on Sunday.
I think you got one guy in, that bad man, Aaron Rodgers, who's looking like the MVP of this league. And then you got Tom Brady, who I think is at the tail end. Everyone's talking about the Bucs like they're going to the Super Bowl. They couldn't beat the Bears. That Bears team is, I think, a lot better than people say they are. But who have they beaten? They beat the Chargers and the Panthers. I don't think either of those wins are that impressive. I don't think they have a good shot against the Packers because I think the Packers will get up on them quick, and I don't think they play well from behind because Brady doesn't have a deep ball anymore. I think it's a blowout game. Aaron Rodgers solidifies himself as the front runner for MVP this year. My final score, I'm saying 30-12. I don't know how you get 12, but I think that's
I think that's a score gone, actually. 30-12.
That's 2 extra points. Or 4 straight field goals. They go touchdownless in the end zone, or in the red zone, but they get there every time.
And Brady's going to have 2 picks.
So, Tyler, let's bring you in a little bit here. So is anyone in that Bucs offense outside of like maybe Brady week in, week out? I think Brady's the QB 10 right now. It seems like Brady's ability to spread the ball around is as prevalent as ever. Is anyone in that offense, though, worth really holding on to, maybe outside of Evans, especially with Godwin's continuing concussion concerns and OJ Howard being out for the year?
Well, actually, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's so many question marks about this Buccaneer offense. I mean, Mike Evans is probably the only one who's consistently getting any sort of touches. Godwin would have provided a nice 1-2 punch, and everyone thought Gronk was going to be something that was, a worthwhile pickup, but he's turning out to be a giant fantasy bust this year. You might be able to have Cameron Brate as your tight end, but even so, like, that's a giant question mark because, as we know, he's not Gronk, and Brady loves Gronk. Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, they split the backfield, but I don't know if you can really rely on either one of them to consistently get touches. So it's hard to say.
You're forgetting one man, Scotty Miller. The new Edelman.
Right at Bowling Green.
That's right. Mac
Well,
Brown.
Yeah. The pride and joy of the Mac. But
Does the Mac produce more slot receivers in the NFL than any conference? I mean, think about all like the guys on good teams who are like Mac guys. Like you got Edelman for the Patriots, Mac guy, Scotty Miller, Deontay Johnson,
Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown.
yeah.
I mean,
Legend. Big Ben.
Wasn't that guy from Central?
yeah, he went to
Yeah.
Central. I mean,
You got
I feel like
Big Ben from Miami of Ohio. You got Khalil Mack from the UB.
the UB. I guess the only other thing I want to hit is anyone in that Packers offense outside of the Rodgers-Aaron Jones duo, which, by the way, to hit on the Aaron Jones analytics thing, last year he was like, I want to say like the 5th or 6th most efficient season in terms of red zone touchdown conversion efficiency. And he was like, if you looked on like preseason stuff, he was your prime like touchdown regression guy. You know, he had 19 touchdowns last year, which is pretty much unsustainable. And then this year through 5 games, he's on pace for 26 touchdowns. Is anyone outside of Jones and Rodgers like worth rostering? I mean, Devontae Adams has now missed at least 5 games the last 3 years. Seemed like he can't stay healthy. Lazard tore his core. I don't know. Anyone else on that Packers roster intriguing to anyone?
You take that, Liam.
Marquez Valdez.
Let me tell you who's intriguing on that Green Bay Packers team, and that is my backup quarterback who's playing this week because Russell's on a bye, and that is the bad man, Aaron Rodgers. Let me tell you something. Everybody thinks that GM for the Green Bay Packers is an idiot. I think he's the wisest man on the planet because Rodgers doesn't need a wide receiver one. He needs somebody to piss him the frick off. That's all he needs to have an MVP season. It doesn't matter who he's throwing to. We already know that. The one thing we need him to do is grow a beard, go into some games that it's snowing in, and just throw a 70-yard bomb to I don't know who just stopped working at Tops. And I mean, that's everybody's making fun of the fact that they needed a wide receiver one. I mean, obviously not. Like all they needed was for him to play with a chip on his shoulder. I mean, he's got a 425 in his back pocket, and he just needed somebody to take him off.
You know what I thought about I saw you guys see that picture with Megatron and DK Metcalf.
Yeah,
comparing the two of them. I was just thinking about Calvin Johnson having to play in that league with Rodgers. Imagine being like that good of a wide receiver. Literally had a season. You're averaging 122 yards a game with Matt Stafford, and you have to watch Aaron Rodgers just like airing it out 70 yards to like just random guys. Like on any other team, they would be like nothing. And you're Calvin Johnson. You retired early because your team was such hot garbage, like that you were like, I'm just done after 9 years, and even though I'm averaging 86 yards a game, like it's just I don't know.
All right.
That's fair.
Well, that's most of the big topics around the league. Let's move on to our power rankings reveal here. Tyler runs these power rankings for our league each week. And a little new segment here we're going to bring every week is a live 12-1 power rankings reveal. Mostly for Liam and Lloyd's reaction, but also to maybe spot Tyler a little bit of time to get these write-ups done a little bit more, so that everyone's satiated with their ranking, and then you can just kind of find out why you're me and you're rated 11th and you're like the definition of fucking mediocre. But let's turn the floor over to Tyler here. Tyler, why don't we break this up into quarters? So announce 12 through 10, and then we'll give Liam and Lloyd a little chance to chime in on each quarter, basically each tier of the league. So we'll start with, let's get Tyler going here. We'll start with, I guess, who is worst in this league right now, Tyler?
All right. So, first and foremost, don't get too caught up with the fact that I have only 2 of these write-ups even started. But starting number 12 is unfortunately Bobby Swick, coming off of his win last week against Sheamus, but unfortunately losing his starting quarterback in the process in Dak Prescott. So pretty much if there's someone on your team not named Baltimore's defense, you are not doing Bobby any favors at this rate in the season. Followed closely by Justin Van Epps with Country Road Take Mahomes, who has been probably the biggest disappointment of any team thus far this year.
Can we just stop and look at his analytics stat for the week, by the way?
Here we go.
This is actually the funniest thing I've ever found. In the first 3 years of this league, Justin only lost 5 times. 2 of them happened to be in championship games.
Don't forget the 1 year where he only lost 2 games for a combined 2-point losses the entire year.
That is his championship year. He lost by 1 in a regular season game, and he lost by 1 in the championship game to Bobby. And Justin now has only, since we basically switched to Sleeper, has only won 6 games. So he's lost almost 3 times as many games in the last 2 years as he did in the previous 3 years combined, which is just hilarious.
That's tough.
And then rounding out the end of this quarter, but cracking our top 10 is one punt man, Seamus Deegan, fresh off of his loss to Bobby Swick. All right. So, how are we feeling after these after 10 through 12?
I just love that the only ray of hope Justin would have had last week didn't make it to the game, not because he was injured, but because he decided to punch his teammate in the face. Literally the only thing that he could have won. He lost by 20 points. I don't have Cam. I don't have McCaffrey. I don't have my stars. I'm a waiver wire. I'm basically playing off the dollar menu. But he still couldn't pull it out.
Listen, all I want to say is the fact that some guys have gotten a really tough break. This is me reading off the stats. If you want to know how many points against Bobby has had through these, what is this? This is going to be week 6. So this has been through 5 weeks, right? All right. So through 5 weeks, he has had 661 points against. That's second most in the league. And if you want to compare that to Mr. Tyler Sheving, he has had 507 points. So through 5 weeks, he is already almost 100. He has more than 150 points against less. So literally averaging 30 points less. I mean, I looked through this week's stat line, and not a single person won by more than 30 points. So just by those stats alone, if Bobby had faced different people, maybe if Bobby had faced himself, then he would be 4-0, and he wouldn't be in the bottom.
I think actually 2 of his weeks were 2 of his losses are to people with the highest score that week. When I was crunching the numbers for the analytics stuff. But yeah, the points against, points for thing is interesting because I'm going to pick on myself here. I am 6th in both. I'm 6th in points scored and I'm 6th in points against, but obviously 2 and 3 in the record. Whereas Liam pointed out, Tyler is I think you're 12th in points against.
I am second. I am second in the teams in points for. And I have the second lowest points against, only behind Dylan Servos, who also he's the bottom in points against and also in points for. So we will get to him in a little bit.
Yeah, but he's 3 and 2 because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, against me, he had the game where Chubb and Fant both played a series and then broke their legs.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got.
No, he's just a mastermind.
He
set the best lineup possible.
Well,
all right.
I have one person who I want to harp on, but we're gonna have to wait a while to get there. So why don't we go to 8 through or 9 through 7 now? Around that sort of that glut of teams in the middle in our league.
Well, all right. So fresh in the top 10, but barely with number 9.
It's gotta be Dylan.
Tim
is unfortunately Tim Whalen.
Yeah, he is
hitting
1 and 4.
4, but having signs of life, but also leading our league in points against, sadly.
That's tough. He
Followed
did
closely
play me on
by-
my hot week.
Followed closely by Tom Flannery, who I'm guessing just didn't give a damn about his lineup this week because he put up a whopping, 50 points this week? 56
He
points
didn't
this
check his
week.
lineup. He definitely didn't check his lineup.
And
No,
then,
he did not. I talked to him.
And then we got Dylan with his averaging under 100 points a week, which is pretty ridiculous considering we have 2 flexes in our league. But yeah, gentlemen, that's where we are on 9 through 7. I guess we'll get Seamus, your initial reactions.
I mean, nothing like unsurprising there. I think Tommy, I'm curious about like the long-term sustainability of his team just because of his 3 wins. I think 2 of them have been on weeks where Josh Allen and Aaron Jones have both gone for more than 30. So, that boomer bust strategy, that a lot of guys who have like McCaffrey and stuff sort of rely on, is a good strategy, I think, for like regular season wins. But it can kind of kick you in the butt if you make playoff games about that because basically you're relying on 3 super steady weeks. But, I mean, those 3 kind of are where they belong. I mean, you could probably argue that Dylan should be lower because he's won, I think, 2 games basically because of like COVID and injuries.
And 2, he's Dylan. Don't forget that.
But I think you also got to give him some credit because he is the defending champion, and like it's pretty hard to like knock the defending champion out of like the top 10 unless he's like doing what Justin did last year.
And unfortunately, yes, he has a god awful team when it comes to scoring, but the guy's 3-2. He has a winning record, and he's like as of right now, he is in a playoff position. So like, it's hard to argue.
So this points against thing. I mean, I had my 194-point game against Tim. Tim's the only guy in the league I would feel bad with that. Like my team had to pick that week for everything to go right. Like it can't be like Seamus or I don't know, Dylan. Has to be
Pray that it would be
him, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get to the people who are actually good at this year.
Let's get
All
to
right,
the people
so-
who set their lineup.
Now we're into the top half of our league. Starting with number 6, Chris Nowak, who once again had a
Hey.
tough week this week, but all in all still has a pretty solid team.
It's always
Crack-
tough when you play me.
Cracking in top 5. Big girlies don't cry with our boy Lloyd here.
I
Followed-
changed my name actually. It's
You didn't at the time of me writing it, so I'm sorry.
It's Hilaire featuring Chris Brown now, I believe.
It's No Hilaire featuring Chris Brown. Yeah.
Followed closely by Boron Crouton.
Hey, Byron Croutons.
All right. So Liam, reactions, especially knowing that based on that you are in the top 3.
Well, it's very exciting. I thought it was really funny when Chris and I made that trade. He proposed to me just a couple of days ago, which was giving me Odell Beckham Jr. and David Johnson for, I don't remember who I traded. Oh, Kenyon Drake. That's right. Kenyon Drake then decided to
Made
drop
out like a
whopping
bandit.
3 points as Odell Beckham Jr. dropped like 280 or something like that. He had like 3 touchdowns or something like that, and about another 110 yards or something. And then even, Dave Johnson got himself punched one in. So I ended up getting almost 40 points on the deal compared to his 3 after a trade that was proposed to me. Sometimes I think you just look at the teams too much trading. You got to put the fantasy down. Sometimes it bites you in the butt.
Chase Edmonds steals touches in that offense, especially like red zone touches. And like, I don't know. Whenever I have the red zone channel going on Sundays, I always feel like when Murray and that Cardinals offense is down in the red zone, they literally run the same formation every time, which is Chase Edmonds on his right, Hopkins in isolation on the left, a tight end left into block, and then I think it's Christian Kirk and God,
Larry Fitzgerald.
No, it's that little
50.
little one they drafted last year from Temple, who is Andy Isabella. And they literally they run the same play every time. It's like fade. Hopkins runs a fade. The other two guys run an inside slant, and Edmonds clears into the backside. And it's just like, oh, look, Chase Edmonds can walk in for a 5-yard touchdown every time. And now Kenyon Drake is like fantasy useless, despite the fact that online he talks a ton of game about like, you should draft me. I'm going to be a star this year. And I think he's like the RB 38. So these nuts.
Gotta love it.
You put me at 5. I mean, as long as I stay 500 until McCaffrey comes back, just watch out. And Cam's back this week, Seamus. So, keep an eye on
I don't know, man. I don't know. Mike Davis has been lighting it up in Carolina in McCaffrey's absence. So
you think they're gonna give Mike Davis the starting job once McCaffrey
No.
again?
Just saying that, McCaffrey might not be as instrumental to that offense as you might think.
He is that offense.
Nobody cares about the running back anymore.
Yeah, well, he's also a wide receiver.
3-0 since we blocked McCaffrey.
Okay. So
okay, let's get to this top 3 because I got a bone to pick with one of them.
Hopefully it's not me.
right.
It's not you. It's not you, and it's not Tyler. I gotta talk about Andrew's team.
All right. Well. Just going off this week's performances, I put up 130 something. Liam didn't crack 120, so Liam, you moved down to 3.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Actually, technically, I guess you move up, right? Because you were 4 last week.
I think I was 4. Yeah.
I move up to 2 because I believe I was 3 last week. Followed lastly by the person who went pretty much undefeated almost all of last year, but lost when it mattered.
Yeah, he did.
Andrew Boucher. All right. So, gentlemen, who wants to start?
Sounds like Seamus has something to get off his chest.
It is the ridiculous Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews thing. Like, okay, so Lamar Jackson, literally 1/3 of his completed passes and 1/3 of his completed touchdown passes are to Mark Andrews. That is just the most ridiculous. Like the highest percentage of a quarterback's touchdowns in their career to one player is Peyton Manning to Marvin Harrison, and it's like 7%. Now, obviously, like this isn't like career sustainable for Lamar, but just like the fact that it seems like the only person he can complete passes to is Mark Andrews is just like the greatest bit of foresight Andrews had in this league. That and like apparently knowing that Pete Carroll was finally going to stop like running the ball more than any coach in the NFL. Like just tremendous foresight. But I just can't believe that Lamar Jackson literally can only complete passes to Mark Andrews. But also a little worried about Lamar's long-term fantasy value because his number of designed rushes per game is literally like 1/8 of what they were last year. And it seems like they're either trying to protect his body more or they don't feel comfortable showing teams those designed quarterback runs until the playoffs. But I don't know. I do worry a little bit about Lamar, but the Lamar-Mark Andrews connection is like the best double dipping strategy right now in fantasy football. So like good on him for coming up with it.
I am gonna randomly interject and apologize to our viewers because Seamus is also incredibly sour because he has Hollywood Brown on his team and Hollywood Brown is getting 0 looks in the red zone, whereas Mark Andrews gets all of the looks in the red zone.
Hey, Hollywood did get a 2-yard slant last week, and like they used the Andrews clear out like to that like goal line fade to like open him up. But usually that's a play designed for Willie Snead, who's a little bit bigger too. So it was weird to see them like use Hollywood in that look. Usually he's like, 70 yards in the air, just beating the corner on a streak. But
well, I mean,
which is funny. Oh, sorry.
As a Baltimore native, listening to sports radio and all that stuff, the secret about the Ravens is they're not that good. I mean, that's why he's got to use Andrews so much. He doesn't have anything. They can't put anything together offensively. I don't think did he clear 100 yards last week? Thrown?
You talking rushing or
No,
passing?
passing.
Yeah, I think he was
was
at like
close.
176.
I don't think
He had
it was
He had
that.
180, but he also had he was 19 of 37.
That's what it was. It was 9. It was the percentage. Yeah, but he's been off, Lamar.
Without the designed runs, I just don't like. I think he has a hard time like getting in the flow of the game without those designed runs. And it seems like especially Washington last week seems like they no longer like respected that like, oh, Lamar's just gonna pull it on 3rd and 5 and go for 40 yards on like a designed quarterback power play. And because of that, they can drop more guys in coverage. And it like I expect Baltimore at some point, if the offense doesn't get going, to start relying on the Lamar run plays more. But that also exposes him to a lot more risk, with him being as like slight as he is compared to say like, I hate to use the Josh Allen comp here, but Josh is 6'5", like 230. Lamar's 6'2", probably 190, 195. Like it's a big difference, like body type wise.
Or Cam Newton, or
yeah, Cam's a good comp. Those just stronger bodies that can take goal line hits and stuff. I mean, I think Liam's got the best team though right now. Actually, I still think Liam's has the best team in the league in terms of he's got the quarterback matchup play. He's got everything. Liam probably would love like one more solid running back just to.
Darrell Henderson has been getting the job done for now. While Dalvin Cook is out, it's definitely going to be difficult for me to pick up wins. I'm facing Burge this week, so that's the number 3 versus the number 1. It's given me a 13% chance to win. But really, all I need is a couple of touchdowns from guys who aren't planning on getting them, and I could, give myself a shot. I've got Aaron Rodgers. They project him to score 19 points, and I see him scoring a lot more than that. It's going to be absolutely all over the field on Sunday night versus the Bucs. I don't see him putting up less than at least 3 or 4 TD passes.
And it's interesting. It's interesting you say that because, as conversely, Lamar's projected to have, I think, 24 points, and Lamar has not really reached that threshold at all this year.
I don't think he's going to hit it. I don't think he's going to hit 24.
Who are the Ravens playing?
The Eagles.
He might hit 24.
Well, so here's what I've learned about the Sleeper app in general is that it weights rushing quarterbacks. It has a really hard time doing projections for two types of players. Rushing quarterbacks and running backs who catch a lot of passes. The projection system struggles to account for the fact that if, say, Lamar Jackson rushes for 80 yards, he's also probably not going to throw for 300 yards. And it doesn't know how to – it seems like the projection system doesn't know how to reconcile those two things.
I think the thing about playing the Eagles is the Ravens are great if they're not playing from behind, and I don't see them playing from behind against the Eagles. The Eagles' defense is good, but I get 24 points. I mean, for Lamar, that means he probably has to throw like 150 yards, rush for 50 or something, right? Like that's pretty par for the course for him, even in a non-MVP season.
Tyler, I guess we've hit the other two top teams. We got to hit your team. I know you kind of famously don't like your team very much, but they continue to win games, and you really don't have a ton of like obvious holes. I just think you have a very high floor team, I would say is probably a good way to describe it.
So if I had to describe my team, I would pretty much just call it a team that – oh, we lost Lloyd. Oh, Lloyd's back.
There he's back.
Yeah. If I had to describe it, I'd say it's a team that, yes, has a high floor, but it could just as easily be a team that sucks week in and week out. I mean, especially, well, it seems a lot better now that Dak is out, because before, Ezekiel Elliott was really only getting his points because he would rush for 40 yards but get a touchdown at the goal line. James Robinson was a very lucky pickup because I was going to be relying on James White, who has really not been doing anything ever since the tragic passing of his father. I mean, Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp, I mean, thankfully they've been pulling their weight, but they are both in. I mean, Hill's a little bit different because of his speed, but Kupp's in a committee receiving tandem. Darren Waller, I'm not going to lie, I knew Waller was good, wasn't too high on Derek Carr. Beyond that, I mean, it's a lot of good players that could put up decent points, but I just feel like it was never a team that would do well in a shootout. And thankfully, I've only had one time where I put up 150 points, and that was against Lloyd. But beyond that, I mean, I'm not like I like my team. I don't feel like it's an invincible team. I feel like it's a team that could lose any given week, and I'm just lucky it hasn't yet.
So I'll pose
I'm
a
not
question to all three of you guys. Based on if Tyler can pull up those power rankings again, if there was one team outside the top three that you think by the end of the regular season is a guaranteed top three team, who is it?
I'm consolidating the space so that we can.
I mean, the best team I've probably played is I think Justin's team, if they're healthy, is actually pretty good with Thomas and if Julio is,
So I actually kind of.
Oh wait, Justin traded Julio. I don't know why he did that.
I think Justin was a little desperate for a shakeup, but I think you're right about Justin's team being really good, especially because of the Mahomes floor. Like Mahomes, especially outside of October, he's in November he's a really elite quarterback, and that's winning time in this. But I kind of don't know what's going on with Michael Thomas now. I'm not saying he's going to ask for a trade or anything, but punching teammates is usually a sign that you're kind of pissed with where you are.
Steve Smith did it twice. He wound up doing okay.
Yeah, but he also got traded.
Yeah, it's fair.
Go to the Bills.
I never punched anybody.
We'll treat you right.
5 years, but
yeah, you'll be part of our process.
So Lloyd says, Justin, you, Tyler, Liam, anyone outside that top three who you think is a sort of a lock to be a top three guy by the end of the year?
I think the obvious answer is Lloyd Webb. When I played him, I was kind of worried that he was going to beat me. A couple of people went my way, and I was pretty satisfied with how it went. But he's sitting at 3-2. He's got one of the highest points for in our league, and so I really think that sort of thing works itself out in the end. If you're scoring some of the most points in the league, you're going to get yourself pretty far.
Tyler.
Oh boy. I mean, I don't. I could take the low-hanging fruit, or, well, I would say honestly probably Brian Crimmins. I mean, the guy's put up an ungodly amount of points every week, and he just happened to lose last week. But if I want to take a shot in the dark, I mean, I would also probably put See, I want to put Tommy in there just because of the boomer bust potential. But God, the way he just forgot his lineup is just so disheartening. but yeah, he has he has Josh Allen, he has Deshaun Watson, he has Derrick Henry, he has Aaron Jones, he has George Kittle. He's got AJ Brown, who actually played this weekend, demolished the Bills. He's got a wonderful team. He just doesn't pay attention. If he actually puts forth the effort, he will wind up making the playoffs and actually could shock somebody, but he has to get there first.
All right, and then let's ask the inverse question. We'll pick the top six here. Of the top six, is there anyone who you guys would maybe flag as at risk of cratering and maybe falling out of the playoff positions?
I'm just going to say Burge only because he's got Lamar Jackson, and if Lamar Jackson were to go down, then Mark Andrews' production would most likely go down. So he's kind of got a niche right there. And also his backup quarterback at the moment is Justin Herbert, and I don't have faith that he would stay in the top 3 or the top 6 or whatever numbers we want with that setup. If your 2 top scorers go down and your new QB1 is Justin Herbert, I see you leaving the top 6.
I'm gonna say my own team. I have a very good starting lineup, but my bench, I've had to rely on James Wilson for 2 weeks. You guys even know who James Wilson is?
He plays for San Francisco, right?
He's their backup running back.
I think he's their 4th string running back, Lloyd. I think he's behind
If I lose Chris Carson or something, then I have to rely on Brandon Cooks. And Brandon Cooks, like, he decides to play every other week.
That's the concussions.
I guess. I don't know.
Well, unfortunately, Dylan is number 7. Otherwise, I would pick Dylan by default.
On this team, though, like, if Eckler gets healthy, like,
but Eckler's out for at least 6 weeks, which would basically mean he's out
playoff
in the
time.
playoff.
I mean, if he's 500 or whatever by then, he still makes it.
So you
pick your own team, Sheving. Pick your own team.
I would pick my own team, but the only thing is that my team actually has like enough. So I said right off at the beginning of the season, the biggest problem is going to be consistency, and believe it or not, that has not been an issue. Like, I mean, like I have 4 good running backs on my team. Like that's something that I never in a million years anticipated. And now that Henry Ruggs is healthy again, I feel like I have a lot of depth. I might actually, I don't want to agree with anyone, but Liam, like looking at Berger's team, I mean, not only is it so dependent on Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson, but you also have to look at his backup running back these last 3 weeks has been Mike Davis, who's been getting him 20 plus points a week. And as soon as McCaffrey comes back, I mean, as I know I was ripping on McCaffrey earlier, but you know that's going to cut into the production almost entirely. So
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's going to be, you know, I don't think he's going to fall outside the top 6, but I can definitely see him being, you know, like a 4 or 5 team from there on out, and his team just won't be as invincible as it seems right now.
I agree.
Yeah. I
All
agree
right.
as well. I think Tyler's
Seamus, I've got a rant prepared for this Ryan Tannehill guy that you were talking about earlier. I don't know if you wanted to introduce
All right,
the
yeah.
topic first.
So we'll hit sort of these end segments now. I think the top one though has got to be the 16-game run that Ryan Tannehill's on right now, which is the third. It basically puts him as the 3rd most efficient quarterback of all time, behind the Rodgers 15-1 MVP season with the Packers and the Brady 07 Pats, you know, greatest regular season team of all time team. I think it says a lot more about actually how bad Adam Gase is than how good Ryan Tannehill is. Just because, you know, that Tennessee offense doesn't really ask him to do a lot. It's mostly like throw the ball to A.J. Brown when he's open, throw the ball to Jonnu Smith when he's open, and if not, like check it down to Dion Lewis and just feed the ball to Derrick Henry. I don't think it's a terribly complicated offense. I don't think he's doing anything superhuman, but the efficiency's nuts. But I still think it says a lot more about Adam Gase just maybe being one of like the 10 worst head coaches of the last like 20 years, because he's screwed Ryan Tannehill's career up. I mean, you know, there are people who are saying Tannehill should be out of the league after that last season with Miami. And I mean, Sam Darnold looks irreparably damaged from 2 years of Adam Gase.
How funny how like after all this time that like now Sam Darnold actually looks progressively worse. Like it's not just that, you know, he's on the Jets, but he's on the Jets and his decision making, his pocket presence, his throws, everything has gotten substantially worse. It is absolutely baffling that Gase is still there, because he is ruining who many were saying was the most talented, the most, I guess, fundamentally talented quarterback of that draft class.
You see
All right, Liam, let's
ghosts.
hear what you got to say about Tannehill.
All right, let me put my glasses. Put that camera on me.
Oh,
All right, so let me show you a couple of stats, because I was trying to think about, like, all right, so why the hell is Ryan Tannehill so much better on the Titans than he was on the Miami Dolphins? And it got me thinking about the Miami Dolphins. So let me read you some names on the Miami Dolphins, and maybe you can tell me something that they all had in common. All right? The three names that I've got here sitting in front of me are the following. You got Richie Incognito, Brandon Albert, and another guy named Mike Pouncey. Can anybody tell me what those three players all have in common?
the bullying thing.
Close. They were bullies,
They
but
left.
regardless of their actions in the locker room,
That's
those
the
were
interior of the offensive line.
three Pro Bowl, multi-year Pro Bowl players on the offensive line for the Miami Dolphins who were traded away during the time that Ryan Tannehill was on the team. How about that for a stat? 3 multi-year Pro Bowl offensive linemen. You want to hear something else? Here are the years of Ryan Tannehill during those players immediately after. They all were traded away by 2015. Here was the number of times that he was sacked after those years. In 2012, when they had all three of them, he was sacked 35 times, and that's still a lot. After they were gone, he was sacked 58 times, 46 times, 45 times. You know how many times he's been sacked so far through 3 weeks on the Tennessee Titans? 3. Or 5 weeks through the Tennessee. He's been sacked 3 times. All right? So first of all, he isn't getting touched at all. Second of all, not only is, he's out of Miami, so the offensive line isn't bad. The offensive line is one of the best in the league. They've got Taylor Lewan on that one side. And who did they go out and get in the first round of the draft? They got, I got to remember his name, Isaiah Wilson. Isaiah Wilson out of Georgia. This man, I'm reading the Titans Nashville Post, in which they interviewed him, and he said, I enjoy
fan in our
trying
chat
to...
who's not too happy.
Who's that? Who's upset?
I think it's his Twitch. Tyler actually has Twitch followers, guys. Like he's like Twitch famous.
Oh, geez. Well, I didn't know people were going to be fact-checking me, but I'm pretty sure these stats are right if Pro Football Reference is
Liam,
correct.
check your internet connection. You're lagging out really hard.
Oh, am I? I've got full bars. Could people hear my rant?
Wait. You just stopped glitching out. But anyway,
All right.
yes, we got the gist of it. But you do have a Finns fan who's calling you a Finns hater right now.
I'm not a Finns hater. I like the Dolphins. Even though I'm a Bills fan, I want to say squish the fish. All I want to read is the quote that he has when he was drafted. He says, quote, I enjoy trying to essentially break down another man's will. that is a direct quote from a 21-year-old man, 6'6", 330 pounds. These are the guys protecting Ryan Tannehill. This is the reason why he's only been sacked 3 times. This is the reason Derrick Henry's running through holes that are big enough for Derrick Henry to fit through. This offensive lineman team is good. Mike Vrabel's a guy who knows that the guys in the trenches win football games, and this is why he looks like the greatest quarterback of all time, because his offensive line is so good. That's the rant. That's it.
For that Dolphins fan, I mean, the Dolphins are just the Bills 4 years ago. They're the Bills of the South. As somebody living in both areas, you guys are hopeless, though.
just like the Bills are.
Low key though, Tua might be like the savior of that team. Fitz is playing really good, but like Tua might be really good. I mean, if his hips like not totally.
Tua's a Fabergé egg, Seamus. All right, they're gonna baby.
He has a hip made of paper. He has a hip made of paper mache. Come on.
Well, he's also he has a bum ankle too. Like he is frail, but frail doesn't necessarily mean like he can't be good.
Our Finns fan says, here's a stat for you: 17-0.
That's true. They did go unbeaten.
Back in 72, but who's counting that it was 48 years ago?
It happened. That's all that matters.
It happened.
Did they win the Super Bowl?
Oh yeah, they did.
Oh, yeah, they did.
I don't think they
Oh,
did.
yeah.
No,
They did?
yes, it was against the Redskins.
The team formerly known as the Washington Redskins.
The Washington Dwayne Haskins.
Lloyd, Lloyd, we just heard Liam's Ryan Tannehill rant. Is there anything our resident Stephen A. Smith admirer would like to go on about in the NFL, whether it be football related, coaching related? I have a feeling it might be Jets or Giants.
Let me just agree with Liam on his point first. My thing is, I don't think I've actually seen, besides this Bills game because it was on a Tuesday, I don't think I've seen a Titans game televised this whole season. Like, get them some primetime games. Like, the team's good. They're like probably a top 5 team in the NFL right now.
Lloyd, I'm gonna give you we're gonna try and close out these shows with you and Liam each getting sort of a crack at ranting with your unique verbal skills and just overall punditry skills. And Liam gave a pretty impassioned rant there about sucking.
I already got mine in.
So Lloyd, I'm gonna give you a chance here. Anything you want to rant about? I mean, you can go off on whatever you want here in the NFL, or once in a while you can save it for NCAA cross country too. But
Brian, if you're watching this, if it's 12 tonight, you got back, you did your double, and you kind of stayed up a little late. I don't know why, but you scrolled upon this after you used your porn machine or whatever you're doing. I just hope come Sunday, when those Packers when they play those Bucks. It is not going to be pretty for your guy. I know. He's got his 6 rings. I know he left, and you still have that poster on your wall. You're looking up at TB12. I know. Now he's Tampa Bay 12. He's all this, but when bad man Aaron Rodgers rolls into that field, I just see a lot of sad Bucs fans. Maybe the Rays. Maybe the Rays will give Tampa Bay some hope. But being a Patriots fan as you are, being a Bucs fan, being a Tom Brady fan, 2020. It's not the year for a lot of people. A lot of bigger things going on. Definitely not the year for Brian Cribbins.
Oh God, Hops! I see the snooze button. Tyler, you are our more moderate force here on this. Anything you want to rant about to close out, or are we good here?
Well, I was thinking like I do want to do some sort of rant regarding the Bills, but I feel like that would be too biased of me. So instead, what I want to talk about is, holy hell, how in the world is Alvin Kamara one of the top wide receivers in the NFL, despite the fact that he's a running back? How is he 3rd in the NFL in receptions and 13th in the NFL in yards, and I believe tied for 10th in the NFL in touchdowns just through the air? Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand why Drew Brees and his pool noodle arm are making a running back the leader, because it's not the fact, don't get me wrong, Alvin Kamara, fantastic athlete, wonderful athlete. But why in the world is he, who's supposed to be a running back, being used pretty much only as a receiver? Because guess what? Alvin Kamara is not in the top 30 in the NFL in rushing right now. So it's kind of like, it kind of feels like we're just wasting the dual threatness of him. But beyond that, that's really the only thing I can think of.
Sounds like they're stealing Brian.
Short answer: his teammate punched his other teammate in the face.
They're stealing Brian Dable's playbook. Brian Dable's classic playbook basically looks like this. If you're a running back, you're going to catch the ball. We're going to do an end around with the wide receiver, maybe have him throw it to the quarterback. Maybe the tight ends will play defense. I don't know. Everybody play a different position. It won't. I'll never expect it.
Brian, I hope your team has Justin's luck. I hope Alvin Kamara roundhouse kicks somebody.
All right. Well, with that honest to God got Alvin Kamara.
Close it out under an hour.
I think we'll wrap it up just to hit under the hour mark. This has been the Week 6 edition of Highly Disputed, the Lloyd and Liam Ranch Show. We'll iron out some of the technical things over the next week, and we'll get back to you guys with another, hopefully about 45 minute to an hour podcast a week from now.
All right, gang. This was fun. Let's do it again.
Let's do it.
See you.